Easy 99.1, it's Rob Hogan welcoming you into another episode of our South of Boston program here. Always thrilled to welcome you in and happy that you woke up a little early to spend some of your weekend with us. And I think it'll be well worth your time this morning. Thrilled to have my guest here today. Gary Marino is a comedian, and you're a comedian, you're an author, you're a whole bunch of things, Gary.
I'm a living, breathing action figure, you could say, Rob. Good to see you.
You know, every time I have the opportunity to talk to a comedian, I know it's going to be entertaining, and I'm not going to have to worry about one-word answers with you.
Oh, I can't say hello in 5 minutes. So.
You have got a show coming up, first of all, World Gone Crazy show. Which is an apropos name, I suppose.
Sure is. For these
how long ago did you name that? Was that before COVID, after COVID? I mean,
I actually had the idea for the show in 2010. We launched it in 2011. We've been at it ever since, minus a few pandemic years where we sat it out.
Do you want to revise it to World's Gone Even More Crazy at some point, do you
think? You know, it's funny, Rob, even as the guy who came up with a show called World Gone Crazy, even I'm fairly taken back now how easily this writes itself. The world is so much more crazier than when we started. I mean,
it kind of makes your job easier to some degree.
It writes itself to an extent, yeah.
Now, you have been a comedian for how long?
Oh, I started doing stand-up about the same time I put this show together. I was a behind-the-scenes guy for a lot of years, very content behind-the-scenes producer of comedy and music shows, and I jumped into performing right around 2011. So I've been doing both stand-up and this show for, about
I mean, did you know from a young age? I mean,
yeah.
That you wanted, were you in high school, were you in college and wherever, and said, you know what, I think this is what I want to do? Did your friends tell you, oh, you're kind of funny, you're quick? You're good.
I heard it from everybody. And even in college, my friends were on my case to go do a couple of open mic nights. And it's funny, in the late 80s in college, I actually got so tired of everybody saying you should be a comedian. I said, enough is enough. I'll go see for myself. And I signed up for a couple of open mic nights at the old Comedy Connection in Boston.
Oh, boy.
And got to tell you, I remember the owner came up to me after and said, Gary, I've never seen anybody. Is that your first time? I said, yeah. He goes, that's the best first time open mic I've ever seen. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? Didn't do a thing for me. And I just didn't feel it, Rob. I never was that guy that said I want to be any kind of a performer. I was a drummer and a musician, had bands all through high school and college, but comedian, actor, none of that stuff. I had a very unique, journey, I think, to get into performing. And that basically was, I was a behind-the-scenes producer with no intention or desire to perform. And then about 20 years ago, I did a big national event called the Million Calorie March, which put me in the national media. After that, Blue Cross Blue Shield put me on the road for 5 years doing about 200 keynote addresses. And I knew that as a speaker, you're supposed to open up with some humor. So I wrote about 10 minutes of stand-up, and that's where I got the bug to do stand-up. So it was a very unconventional.
It's funny that people that you say that start with something funny, because that's part of one of those whole things. I went to broadcasting, Emerson College, radio, whatever school, for my traveling clown show that I do. And that's the thing because so many people, you see them get up, and that's the scary thing about public speaking. I think there's a stiffness there. And if you lighten that crowd suddenly and you see a smile or you get a little bit of a laugh, I mean, that stage thing goes, you go from one end of the stage to the other, and you go, okay, all of a sudden, this is going to be easy.
Exactly.
When they're all just looking at you going, okay, what are you going to talk about?
Exactly.
And you're trying to just come out of the box with a serious story. That's rough.
That's how I got the bug, was just, I found myself as the years went on, because this was 200 keynote speeches over the course of about 5 years, Rob, all across the country. And what I found was I started to really enjoy doing the stand-up more than the motivational talk. And nowadays, that's how I landed where I sell smiles for a living.
I mean, you've done okay. You've been on ABC's, Live with Kelly Ripa. You have performed all over the place. The Comedy Store, Laugh Boston, of course. Off the Hook in Naples, Florida. I got to believe it's a different type of crowd when you're doing comedy in Boston than Naples, Florida.
Well, You can say that again. I mean, listen, that's the old country down there. Great audiences, love them.
Sure.
But it's definitely an older crowd. It's a bit of a money crowd down there, which is also challenging. But I love performing down there, especially in the dead of winter. It's a little selfish on my part.
Well, yeah, there's no reason not to like that. It also opened for Loretta LaRoche, who I did have the opportunity to meet and see on a couple of different occasions. She's fantastic.
Love Loretta. She's my spirit animal, and she's my emotional support animal. And we became friends years ago. And as a matter of fact, now that I'm in Plymouth, I'll probably go see her today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she's a very funny, she's a pistol.
Yeah, she sure is. I mean, she's memorable, and she catches you. You know, she draws you right in, and you know, she commands a room.
Yeah.
That's
I
for
never
sure.
thought we would end up being the great friends we are, but we're actually very close. I love her.
Well, tell her I think she's fantastic.
Thank
you won't
you.
know who the heck I am, but you know, I've seen her on a couple occasions, and she definitely you remember her, and you remember the whole set and everything she talks about.
Yeah.
When you first got in and you wanted to be a comedian, do you try to model yourself after somebody? Do you admire a comedian and said, you know, I like his style or her style, and I want to be like them? Or, you know, I mean, obviously you got to find your own niche. But I mean, do you look at somebody like a Leno or whoever, Stephen Wright, whoever it might be, and say, that's who I think I'm sort of like, or do you just completely not do that?
I didn't, only because I've always seen comedy as just an amplified version of the funny part of your personality, you know, the charactery side of you. It's that I've always seen it. So no, I didn't patent myself after anybody or really study comedy. But I can tell you this: when I first started doing it, almost out of the gate, people started coming up to me and going, you know, you remind me of? And I said, who? And they said, oh, the great one. And I'm going, who's the great one? You know, I'm a young guy.
Sure.
Turns out, Jackie Gleason.
Really?
And so I got a lot of, I get that from a lot of people. Nowadays, I joke on stage that I'm the love child. I look like the love child of Jackie Gleason and Paul Sorvino.
If you were talking to somebody out there who maybe, you know, is listening to this and has thought about becoming a comedian, pursuing that, what do you think it takes? What does it take to be a successful comedian?
Well, you know, to quote Steve Martin, you are a thought machine. That's part of your job, you know, is to always be looking for things you can turn into bits and turn into jokes. And I do think you're supposed to study comedy. I didn't, but only because I had already been working in it, producing shows. So it kind of became part of my DNA. It was always, you know, echoing through my brain and circulating my brain. So I kind of knew the pacing and the setup punchline end of it. But I think if people want to get into it, I mean, boy, there's so much great streaming stuff out there. Study those people. And then you've got to get up and get as much stage time as you can. And you know, what's funny about this business, Rob, is, you know, you meet these hot tickets who everybody, you know, who you would think would be great up there. They're the ones that go up and die. Then you meet the quiet guy, someone like you.
Sure.
Who gets up there and you kill it. And that's interesting.
You know, it's funny you should say that because, I mean, I think that part of the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because obviously you know better than I do. One of the things I think about being a comedian is just, you know, looking at everyday situations, looking around you and just kind of absorbing things. And you can find funny in a lot of different places.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I will go and sit in an airport and try to pass the time, obviously waiting for a plane. I don't just go there at my spare time. With friends of mine.
It's a lot of TSA work to get through.
Yeah, it became a problem when they came along. It was easier before that. But, you know, I'll look around and be like, look at that, you know, and I'll just, and my friends will look at me and go, where does this stuff in your head come from?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's right there. I mean, it's in front of you.
It's so true.
So do you think that is a comedian, is that in your DNA? Can you develop that? Can you teach that? Or is that inside people? Is that part of their personality or not?
All right, so I see a lot of people who are not naturals, who worked really hard and over a course of years and years working the material and doing free shows, developed pretty good acts. But the ones I gravitate to, there are people who were just meant to be in this business. people who have natural stage presence and natural personality up there, and who are just born to do this. So it's a mix of, I always found the business is a mix of those guys. You got the people who weren't naturals, but they worked very hard and ended up putting together an act. And then you got people who just were born to do this.
Sometimes it seems that people are trying too hard to be funny.
Yeah.
And we've probably all seen that. But
that's the guy I was talking to, the first guy.
Yeah. And it probably, I'm sure, didn't, it's kind of like radio. I mean, my first day on the radio, I was awful. It wasn't great. But you get better, hopefully. Otherwise, you still don't do it. But, I mean, that first time on the stage, I mean, there had to be some rough nights out there. Are you just like, get me off of this stage when you're going up there and you can't get a laugh from one person in that crowd? What? And did that happen to you in the beginning?
Well, I remember I told you about when I was in college, when I tried the open mic nights, when my friends were pushing me. It's funny. Looking back, Rob, I had no idea how good I actually had done. I really thought I tanked.
Yeah.
And I walked off stage and said exactly what you said. I said, I'm not good at this. I don't want to do this. Now, knowing what I know now, no, I was actually pretty natural up there. But yeah, even now, listen, you have nights where it's just a miss at this level, the level I work at. It's not like people know what they're getting with comedy. So you have to try to appeal to all of the crowd. So you'll do some observational stuff. You can even do some dirty stuff, whatever. You try to do a mix of everything.
You got to read the room.
Exactly, yeah. So I would say I don't have a lot, but when I have a tough crowd for my stand-up, then I just give it the best I can. And you know what? I take the paycheck. It's a job. And then there are other nights when I walk off stage and I go, man, if that's the last show I do before I die, I can live with that. That was great. I'll take that one in my grave. It's a mix. Sometimes the audiences on the road especially. See, Boston is interesting because there's a certain culture here. And, I'm an Italian boy from Medford, and they,
I mean, what's funny in Revere and Medford and East Boston is not really funny in Wisconsin.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I was out and I did some shows in Los Angeles, and I did the Comedy Store in La Jolla, California, which is just above San Diego.
Yep.
It was the funniest thing. They introduced me as being from Boston. When I got out on stage, there was this one table on the right that was going crazy. And I said, "Are you guys from Boston?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, great. Where you from?" They said, "Reading." I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Where do you think I'm from?" And they said, "Medford." I said, "Oh boy, it's a look, I guess. It's a look." Yeah. I don't live there anymore, but that's where I grew up.
World's Gone Crazy is your show. Tell us about you've got two shows coming up, by the way. One at the Curtain Call Theater, that's in Braintree. That's quickly on June 7th. Also, you've got another show coming up at the Spire Center down here in Plymouth. What's the date on that show again?
That's August 2nd, Saturday, August 2nd.
Got a little more time to plan for that one. But you can head to our website, easy991.com, and enter, by the way, to win tickets to both of these shows. Tickets available for both shows, curtaincallbraintree.org, so you can get those today. Also, spirecenter.org. Walk the listeners through a little bit. What can they expect? Because this is not a typical comedy show.
Yeah, that was the goal. I'm a rocker. Music is my first love. Comedy's my second love. Actually, food's my second love. Comedy's my third love.
Well, join the club.
Let me redo this. Women is my first love.
Okay.
Music's my second love.
Right.
Then it's food, then it's comedy. But no, seriously, as I told you, I had bands all through high school, all through college. My band in high school was called the Boston Baked Beans.
There you go. That's nice.
Yeah, that was a reference to not the beans, but the behavioral modification substances
Gotcha.
we were all taken in the 80s. But so I've always loved rock and roll and music. And when I first got into this business, I used to work with great musical comedians, DJ Hazard, right here out of Boston, Chance Langton, who's a South Shore guy. And I always loved, these guys would come out and do brilliant stand-up, but then they would reach behind and pull out a guitar and do, like another 25 minutes of musical comedy. And next thing you know, the comedy club was turned into a music show. Everybody's clapping along and singing along. And
so a bit of a
variety
show.
Yeah.
To some degree.
So what I wanted to do, Rob, was capture that in a bottle. As much as I love stand-up, I think there's so much of it. The goal with World Gone Crazy was to create something for the music lovers and the stand-up comedy lovers and smash that together. So really what World Gone Crazy is it's a 90-minute therapy session to a World Gone Crazy. Everything we do is ripped right out of the headlines. But we're a band of rock and roll comedians. Everybody in the show is a comedian. And we do song parodies. We do original songs. We do audience sing-alongs. We do impressions. We do fake commercials, all that stuff. And then each of us does a solo spot in the show of stand-up. So it's really for lovers of rock and roll and lovers for stand-up. Don't you love it when you go to, Great Woods or whatever, and you go to see one of your favorite performers and he's got a sense of humor up there?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And he seems real, or she, they're real, and they're having a good time.
Exactly.
And you can feel that, and the crowd feeds off of that.
And that's what I wanted to capture in the bottle.
There's nothing worse than the performer that shows up, and I won't name names, Whitney Houston, but shows up and didn't want to, and please, I'm not the biggest Whitney fan to ever walk the earth in terms of vocal quality there. But she came and did a show in Providence years ago that I was so pumped up for, and it was just like you knew she did not want to be there. But
I can one up you. I actually met her in 1987 when I was in radio.
Yeah. At
one of her shows. She didn't even want to be backstage with me. So never mind the show.
Darn it. Oh my God. So comedy in this day and age, we've gone to weird places in the last, 10 years or so, maybe more than that. But is it harder to be a comedian now? Are people, we used to be able to laugh at ourselves. I just think in general, as a world, as a population, has that changed how you have to get ready for a show? I mean, have you completely changed your act? Have you tweaked it a little bit? Or how much does that factor into your headset when you go out there? Are people going to be offended? I can't talk about this, and now I can't make fun of that. It used to be when people went to a comedy show, I went all the time, and as a high school kid, a college kid, when I was, I went to school in Boston. We were in the Comedy Connection. We were, all those clubs all the time. Giggles Comedy Club back in the day. And you sat in the audience and you knew you were going to get picked on. I'm going to go to a comedy club, next week. I know at some point the bald guy in the third row is going to get picked on. And you're okay with that. You know what I mean? But is it...
Were you bald even back then?
Pretty close. But is it... No, not till I got into radio, actually. I had a good head of hair until I got in this business. But if I go to a club, like I'm saying next week, but you... Yeah. Even in high school, for various reasons. I mean, they're just picking on the crowd and stuff like that. Is that harder to do now because people seem to be a little more sensitive?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, first of all, you're always tweaking. You're always tweaking your act. To me, it's a process that never ends until you're a headliner and you're just killing it every night. In terms of the political correctness, it's had a huge effect on what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to do. And certainly with World Gone Crazy, we've had to edit a lot of stuff out, stuff that always got laughs. But yeah, it's like we used to do Billy Joel's Allentown, only it was Provincetown. We can't do that anymore, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, people are just, I don't know, they're a little more sensitive, a little more edgy now sometimes. Where they, I think before we could, and the world was a little bit, it was a little funnier when we could all laugh at ourselves and at each other. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like I was talking about going to the airport with friends of mine, and I'll just pick out people, and I'm like, look at this one, and my friends are like, you're just terrible, and I'm like, I'm making fun of myself all day long. I mean, please, I'm not perfect, I'm no prize, and whatever. I'm the first person who's going to stand up and make fun of myself, So I mean, it's all in fun, really.
We've lost some of that.
Yeah,
it has made stand up, I think, harder. But it is what it is. That's the world we live in. The other big difference between now and when I started 10 years ago was we don't touch politics.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea these days.
But imagine I have a show called World Gone Crazy.
Yeah.
And I can't touch politics.
Well, you still got plenty of material.
Oh, yeah. It writes itself. No, but
I don't know if that's good or bad, but there's plenty of other stuff out there for you.
My job is to make people forget about their problems and forget about the world. So I dragging them into politics or any of that stuff is not what
Which
they're
is
coming
what
to
you
pay
figure
for.
when people go to a comedy show. I mean, like I said, when you walk through that door, I mean, you got to expect, part of the, and some of the funniest comedians I've ever seen has been the crowd interaction.
Oh, yeah.
And you can just watch because, I mean, obviously you're up on that stage. You don't know who's going to sit in those seats on any given night. And are they going to play along? Are they going to be funny? And some of the funniest nights I've seen in a comedy club is when the people in the seats are just as funny as that guy. And the reaction.
Yeah. There's only about a handful of I think, comics from this area that are great crowd work guys, but these are guys who could literally get up and not do a joke. Like, just do that. Just mess with the crowd. That, to me, is a whole different level of talent.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because, I mean, that's like baking a cake, and it's like, all you got is what's in the cupboard.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what's in that cupboard when you show up.
I'm not one of them. I can have some fun with the people, but I wouldn't say I'm a great crowd work guy. Although once in a while, boy, like you said, when you get the right person in the front row, you can have a lot of fun.
Oh, just the plane takes off. It's good.
Yeah.
You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
So this could be a tough question. It could be a simple question. Maybe it's etched in your mind. Is there a best gig ever and a worst gig ever that stands out for you?
Oh, yeah. We've all had our Spinal Tap moments, for sure. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we care to share? Or is that, you want to keep that hidden?
No. I just actually, there have been more than one. So, I have to really think through which one was the absolute worst one. But, oh, my goodness. Let me think.
All right. So, well, maybe that'll be in the book.
Yeah, maybe it'll be in the book. Best gig ever, I'll pull a Tom Brady here and say the next one.
Okay. All right.
But no, there are definitely shows, Rob, where I'm telling you, you'll take it to the guy. I come off stage, and I am so lucky to get to do this show. What a night. And then I'm on the beach the next day or hanging out, and I'm just walking on air going, what a great night. And, with this show, I get to play drums. I get to sing backups. I get to sing leads. I get to do stand-up. It's everything I love all in one. And when we connect with the audience, it's I'm a lucky guy, and it's a great night. And then, honestly, like I told you, there are other nights where you go, okay, this is just going to be a take the paycheck. But try to give them the best show you can. But, sometimes you just don't connect.
Okay. Is there a greatest all-time comedian that stands out to you? Maybe a couple of them?
Yeah. I he's no longer with us, but I think Richard Jeni was one of the greats that I've ever seen out there. And then who else? Let me give you. Locally, he's retired, but I think DJ Hazard out of Boston was just a brilliant mind. Scientists will study his brain someday.
Yeah. Yeah, Stephen Wright was
absolutely.
I had the chance to meet him and talk to him a couple of times, and very cerebral and dry. And fascinating guy to be able to
He is, yeah. He's from Burlington, where I live now.
Yep.
And I didn't know that till I moved to Burlington. But literally, he's from Burlington, and then Amy Poehler is from Burlington. And Stephen Wright, it's funny, when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, growing up in Burlington in the early 70s, yeah, I can get why he was smoking weed and writing cerebral jokes. I get it. He's brilliant, though. He's great. And, what's funny, nobody ever walks out of a Stephen Wright show and says, he didn't do it for me. You know what you're going for. At the level I work at, the people don't know what they're going to get. And it's much more challenging because you have to try to win them over and hope that you appeal to their types of comedy.
Okay. We got a few minutes left here. Obviously, we want to let people know about tickets for your two shows coming up. Curtain Call Theater, you're going to be in Braintree. That's on June 7th. Coming up quickly, the World Gone Crazy show. Curtain Call, Braintree.org. You're also going to be at the Spire in Plymouth, downtown. Beautiful theater, by the way.
Love it.
You've worked at it.
Went to the big Cars tribute there last summer and said, I got to get in touch with these people and book our
that's
show.
a great venue and good people down there. So,
and I should mention, we're there also with Tom Cotter, who was the only comic who went to the finals of America's Got Talent. He's an absolute gem of a comic who came from this area. So it's we're basically opening up for him. So you'll get the 15-minute version of World Gone Crazy, and then you're going to get at least an hour of killer Tom Cotter. It's going to be a great night.
And you can get tickets, more info on that show at spirecenter.org. Can I throw a few comedian names out at you, and you'll just give me a one-word, two-word description of your first thing that comes to mind when I say them?
Just don't get me in trouble. Yeah, let's go.
No, I'm going to never try to do that. I'm only trying to do good things for you. George Carlin.
What's amazing about Carlin is, to this day, you can go on YouTube, and his comedy and political commentary is as relevant today as it was back when he was doing it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Don Rickles.
One of a kind. There'll never be another. Although check out our Don Gavin and Tom Cotter. I think are both from this area and both in the mold of they're our local Don Rickles.
Lenny Clark.
Lenny is very funny.
Jay Leno.
Leno, wow. I mean, talk about a local boy done good. He was meant to be the killer writer and killer comedian that he is, and he's done well and seems like an awful nice guy.
His name is Gary Marino. He is going to be, like we said, in Braintree. He's also going to be at the Spire Center in Plymouth. World Gone Crazy is the name of the show. If they want to get more info and follow you around, not be like a stalker or anything, but, and see info on your background, your upcoming appearances, best place to do that.
So MarinoLiveCreative.com, you'll see all of my shows in background on me. There's videos on there. World Gone Crazy Comedy Band on Facebook. You can track us there. Also, I should mention our CD, our comedy CD is called Everything Worth Doing is Worth Overdoing. And that's available on iTunes and Spotify. And all the proceeds from that go to two alcohol rehabilitation programs here in Boston.
Amazing. Great work.
Thanks.
Super. Pleasure to meet you.
Hey,
and
same here.
I look forward. I want to get out to one of these shows and check it out. So
love to have you.
I can't wait to see you up there on that stage. We'll talk again.
If you liked us, Rob, we were World Gone Crazy. If you didn't, we were Up with People.
I've seen them. That was not a funny show. Anyway, it's kind of like Blue Man Group.
Exactly. That's what I say. My show is a lot like that. I feel like I've joined Blue Man Group. It's a very complex show.
I mean, I could do Blue. All I need is a little can of paint, and I'm all set.
I actually have glow sticks, drumsticks that glow. Okay. And that's one of my jokes in the show. I say, I stole these from Blue Man Group, and they fired me. Something about I didn't look right in the blue paint, Rob.
Well, I could pull it off. You can't. Yet.
You could.
I know it. All right. So another episode of our South of Boston program here on Easy 99.1. We always appreciate you tuning in, spending a little bit of your weekend with us. Get on out and see this guy and see some funny nights and some fun. And lighten up and have a good time. And thank you very much for spending a little bit of your weekend with us and always listening to Easy 99.1.